It's me, Dan, Grumpy Vegan Grandad. How is everybody? We've got quite a few on today. Somebody give me a little thumbs up that you can hear me loud and clear, and then we'll make a start, people. Yeah, I need that thumbs up or I'm going nowhere. I'm doing nothing until I get that thumbs up from somebody and say, yeah, I can hear you, I can see you, and you look bloody handsome. Any mods on? Oh, brilliant, thank you, Trash. Any mods on? If you haven't noticed, some people on there have made you mods without you realising, so please keep your eye out. Don't sort of get rid of any trolls straight away unless they start spamming. We can rip them to pieces if they come on. Anything Ichiago, because he's doing the rounds again, ban him straight away, please. Get rid of him. He's a total knob. Sorry about the language. So guys, now this gentleman that I'm talking to today, I see him quite a lot. He's a vegan and animal rights activist. He's a regular on the Animal Rights Show, and he's one of the biggest thorns in the side of Roger Yates. He actually disagrees with him quite often, which I find hilarious. He's got several Facebook accounts, YouTube channel, and a website, which I'm going to share with you later. Let's have a quick look at who's on. So, Leon. Ahoy there. They were first. Well done. Vegan Mooncat, I'm early again. You can no longer mock me for being late. No, you were too early this time. It's too early. There's a line. There's like a nice space. You know, not too late, not too early. You know, you're way too early. Michael Askew, thank you. Welcome. Tone, how are you? Which tone are you? Michael Askew again. Katrina Marinova, how are you, my love? Have you moved yet? Are you in your new place? Peace with Reese. You should be in bed. What are you doing? You should be in bed in your mansion. You should have serviced your harem by now and be tired. Nella Giatraku. I hope I said that, Nella. Nella Giatraku. Is it Greek, that? It sounds a bit Greek. Trash Carcass, of course. Hello there. So let's bring the gentleman on and let's have a look. I want to make an announcement as well once Jeremy's introduced himself. There's something going on and I think we all need to do a call for action on this. It's really important, so I will do that. But let's, without further ado, let's bring on Jeremy. Hello, Johnny Mayan. Pleased to have you on board. Hey,
hello,
Jeremy. Hello.
How are you doing, Dan? Thanks for having me on.
Mate. You're welcome. Do you want to just introduce? It is. Do you want to just introduce yourself to the clan?
Yeah, sure. So I'll do a quick elevator pitch, I guess. But yeah, I'm a vegan, I guess, about 7 years. It all kind of tipped off just like 2002, I guess. Quite a while ago now. Read Diet for a New America. And yeah, just kind of got me thinking. That's where I kind of did the stop eating animals and vegetarian thing. Unfortunately, I stayed there a bit longer than I would have liked in retrospect. But yeah, just really in the last few years especially, I've really become passionate about communication and especially language, because I know for me, I really struggled to find my voice and I was able to. So I think that's probably true for a lot of us. So I'm really passionate about talking about those sorts of ideas to, you know, help empower others and empower each other, I guess.
Well, we're going to get into that a little later, and I look forward to that, and I think a lot of people will be interested about that. But, right, just as a little bit of a distraction, folks, call to action. I've put a link in the chat already. I'm going to share the screen now, and I'm going to explain what it's all about. So, this is Free the MBR Beagles. And it's happening right now. I'm going to read you what it says. The conditions inside the facility are not the subject of protest. It is the fact that puppies here are bred indoors, never see daylight, and then at 16 weeks are shipped off in vans to be used in toxology, poisoning tests in labs where they will die. We maintain that the people that work here cannot care for animals, otherwise they would not work at a facility dedicated to factory farming dogs to be killed in labs. The dogs are produced here not to benefit medical science. They are used for toxicology tests, i.e. how much of a certain chemical is required before the dog dies. Research to find new cures and medicines can be and is carried out using modern computer research. These dogs, our lives are wasted needlessly. Any claims from MBR that they can't produce noise which distresses the dogs borders on the ludicrous. I'll say that again. Any claims from the MBR that the camp produces noise which distresses the dogs borders on the ludicrous. This dog farm contains 2,000 animals, all of which are yelping, barking and howling constantly. The camp can barely be heard over the noise of the anguished dogs. So they've actually set up a camp out there, guys. Let me just accept that and stop sharing that. So this is in Huntingdon. Let's do this. Millions of people have dogs in this country, and they're no different from the dogs that are currently being sold by MBR to research labs. A group of protesters have launched a campaign against a global company with a Cambridgeshire location, which breeds animals for use in biomedical research and laboratory testing. The camp, named Camp Beagle, has been set up outside of Marshall Bioresources. That's MBR. It's on the outskirts of Huntingdon, which is Cambridgeshire. The camp, which is to remain a permanent fixture and has facilities for people to remain on site, has been set up to protest the breeding of puppies for use as test subjects in laboratories. So people, if you have time, if you have the resources, please get down to Huntingdon. I'll share the YouTube page again for you in the chat. Please give it a follow. Please spread the word on this, because this is absolutely despicable, and this should speak out to the people in the UK, even if they're not vegan, because this is dogs. I thought we were a nation of dog lovers. So how are people overlooking this? So spread the word. Spread the word. Tone says I came across a video of that a few weeks ago. It's pretty horrific. Yeah, it is. It's just ridiculous. What are your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'll confess I'm not completely up to speed on it. I actually was copying that Facebook over to look at it myself. I think for my own outreach, I know I've recently updated, well, maybe 6 months or a year ago, updated to include dogs as well as other species who aren't typically focused on. Because here in Brighton, we have a lot of, dog racetracks. So I think that is a powerful connection, because as we're seeing in the comments, it's like you say, I mean, what's the difference between dogs we've gotten to know and these other dogs? And I would say that for any species of our fellow animals. So I think there's a powerful thing to leverage there, because speciesism is so rampant. I mean, at least if we can focus on a species that at least has some level of respect, although I think it's worth noting, and this is an example of, even dogs are not immune from speciesism. So it's a good talking point, I think.
It is, and it's a good way in, because, I mean, we can all now talk to people and say, what do you think of this? They're breeding beagles to dog lovers and breeding beagles. And then we can go, whoa, what about the other animals that are getting abused? What do you think about, it's a really good way in. Let's have a look. Huntingdon Life Sciences. Yeah, but I think this is, I don't know whether this is something new, whether this has gone up a scale, whether they've gone up a gear. I'm not sure. I'm like Jeremy. I've only just been notified by this off a follower on my channel, so I'm not up to speed on it. So if any of you want to do a little bit of research and throw it in the chat, I'd be happy to sort of read that out. But yeah, ridiculous, mate.
It was interesting. Also, I saw in one of it looks like maybe a demonstration that was happening about it, the language death camp, because obviously that's been a big discussion in the movement, hasn't it? Whether or not the animal Holocaust language is the efficacy of it basically for our advocacy, and that is the death camp language. I just find quite interesting, because that's obviously language that would be used for humans as well, and maybe that's an interesting middle ground where actually it doesn't kind of have the same triggering effect, which. I think we should use it anyway, mindfully, but I just found that jumped out at me.
yeah, death camp here. I mean, I mean, that is just a description of what it is. I mean, it is funny how we sort of conflate things, but yeah, it is a death camp. It is a death camp. That's what they've been bred to be killed. There's no other way about it. It's not even food. It's not even food. I mean, I'm not saying food is an excuse, but well, anyway, listen. Let's get into this later. Because I want to know about you to start with, Jeremy. I want to know all about you. So I can't work out whether your accent is like Scottish or Irish. So please enlighten me where exactly you're from.
You can give me test words and how I say them, and then you can guess. But yeah, I think my accent's a bit disguised. I think a lot of people do guess Irish. Surprisingly, I'm usually at the pub holding a Guinness at the same time since it's been vegan. So that might be a factor. But yeah, I'm from the Midwest part of the U.S. And then I moved around. In 2010, I moved to New Zealand, where I met my now partner. And then I lived in Singapore for a while, and then obviously here in the UK for about 6 years now. So my accent's all over the place.
Wow, yeah, I bet it is. So tell me about growing up in the Midwest. What city is the Midwest? What state is?
It's one I'm still confused as a local, so I can imagine for someone who hasn't grown up there, it's even more confusing because it was the Midwest when they'd only explored that part of the U.S., or America, North America. But now that they've explored the whole thing, it's no longer the Midwest. But it's basically kind of in the middle of the country. Like Cincinnati, Ohio is where I grew up, kind of near Chicago.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, heavy into animal use, very heavy into animal use. My mom's family was a farmer, farming family, and I would say animal users, to distinguish between the farming and animal using. But yeah, good place to grow up. But I'm happy to explore the world a little bit and see other cultures.
And so growing up, obviously you weren't vegan. You've told me, it's six years now. Did you say you've been vegan?
Yeah, since 2014, about 7 years in there bits. But I think once we get past that first year mark, I think for a lot of us, that's a real telling point where you're getting that socialization, the hurdles, the social circles. And I think we all that have been doing this can agree that it's pretty easy, the supermarket shops and all that after the first couple goes. But yeah, once you start talking 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, it all kind of becomes a bit of a blur.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that one because I've had to look back through my Instagram accounts to find out when I actually went vegan because there is a sort of line, and it was September, so I'll be 5 years in September. So,
yep.
So I mean, without prying too much into your life, what do you do to what sort of profession are you in to allow you to like travel all over the world? Because like I work like 5 days a week and I can't even get to the seaside at the moment, but what do you do for a living? What's your profession?
Yeah, pry away. It's a bit of a story. I mean, I think just kind of went where life took me in a lot of ways. I mean, my best friend in the U.S. had a dream of going to New Zealand, and they had this working holiday scheme, which if you're under 30, you basically do an online application that takes about 5 minutes, and they're like, sweet, come to our country for a year, which is a pretty rare opportunity. So I did that, and just obviously fell in love with the country, and obviously my partner pretty shortly after moving there. And then, I mean, we've been moving with her work more so, but as far as I do some stock market trading, specifically in options, which I don't know how much of the detail we want to get into with that, but that's very little time commitment. I basically dedicate as many hours of the day as I can to animal advocacy, which has evolved how I do that over the last several years, but yeah, a Kiwi.
Unsubscribe. No, generally, no, it's not.
Don't take it out on Dan. At least you can take it out on me.
So, right. So basically, you've got time to sort of think about things. And what brought you to the UK? Was it your partner's occupation again, or was it? Did you want to come to the UK? What brought you here?
A bit of both. I mean, I think before then we were living in Singapore for about 3 years, and we loved it. But I think we're less city people and more we enjoy the countryside. I mean, we've got 2 dog friends who have been victims of speciesism living with us that like to be in the green space and be able to take them, go for walks with them. And the UK just seemed really similar to Auckland, where my partner grew up, and Cincinnati, where I grew up, because similar in population and not just being like thrown smack dab into a busy city. So it was an appealing thing. But yeah, we did move here. She's in the field of diabetes. So kind of with her work, preventing it, not causing it. So just important distinction there. But
I mean, I've got a massive family in New Zealand, massive, because my two uncles on my mum's side, they took advantage of the where they actually it was a £10, I think it was £1 or a £10 fee to go over to New Zealand, and they wanted the workforce over there. So my two uncles have gone over in the 1930s, not 1930s, 1950s. And of course, you can imagine how big the family is actually spread from two guys going over to New Zealand, and yes, so but I've never been. It's always been out of my reach, sort of financially. So, but I do intend to visit. I really do intend to visit. I want to go there, and I've always said that if the zombie apocalypse does happen, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going to stow away to. New Zealand.
Well, we've probably come as close as we might come in hopefully in our lifetimes with the zombie apocalypse with the recent pandemic, haven't we? And New Zealand did fare incredibly well for a variety of reasons, but it is a bit of a utopian experience. I mean, animal use is a big part of their exports and their way of life there too. But veganism's on the and animal rights is on the upswing there. I know even since we were living there, so. Yeah, I wouldn't mind living there. It's a matter of finding work, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, the epitome of top quality meat is New Zealand lamb, unfortunately, in the UK. That was like, when you have the family round on a Sunday for your Sunday lunch, New Zealand lamb. Whoa, they really treated us with the New Zealand lamb, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So they have got a big... I believe there's more sheep than people in the New Zealand.
That's one of those things that I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not, but
well, that's an
interesting one from a language perspective, isn't it? Lamb, because so many we have your pork and your beef and all these euphemisms to invisibilize the victim, but lamb, it's like, come on,
it's what it is. Yeah, exactly.
It shows there's more than just the euphemisms to overcome. I think, yeah, there's something deeper going on there.
So let's have a quick look at right. So guys. This is Jeremy's YouTube channel, so please go over and subscribe and take a look. I think you'll find some of his content is absolutely spot on. I'm not saying that any of his other content isn't spot on. I've just not managed to watch it all. But what I like about Jeremy on his channel is the way he explains things. It's his calm demeanour. He explains things in easy to understand language, and he really sort of explains things so that you can understand, so that you can get it, because a lot of it is very complicated, and we'll probably get into that a little later. So please go over to that. He's also got a Facebook page. So that's the Facebook page. Jump on that, and then if you click on this, visit group, that will take you to... feel free to jump in anytime. Vegan interactions. So what's... Oh God, I've got people chatting me there.
Hopefully nothing too incriminating. It's on the internet forever.
Okay, Danny, I've got that wedge of cocaine you asked for.
Oh, no.
So just explain what this is about, this Vegan interactions page, and how we can use this page.
Yeah, I mean that space was created when I really first started getting active in 2017. I've done a lot of street outreach, and that's I really enjoy that for a variety of reasons. But my real focus and passion is animal sanctuaries. So that's my real drive has been for the Facebook page, doing animal-centric videos. Because I found a system that I can kind of get quite a lot of reach. I think Facebook's changed some of their gears. I used to get 30, 80,000 reach pretty easy and consistently, and they've switched that, so that I'm also more on YouTube these days because of that. So I'm exploring with the two platforms. So, but yeah, as far as this group, it's really just a space to share ideas. The other one that I'm possibly more involved with than this one is there's a language group. Called Unlearning Speciesist language. That's got about 3,000 members, and every day or so someone's just chucking something in there that's quite thought-provoking. because I like to think of language as a bit of a riddle, and I just find it fascinating to try to unpack this. Obviously, it has very serious consequences, but
What's it called, Jeremy? Unlearning?
unlearning speciesist language.
Got it. 1 second. I shall bring that up right now.
And Varun actually started the group in 2019, if my memory serves me correctly. So it's a couple years old now. But that's just a brilliant sandbox. I think the first thing is just kind of letting go of our current language and really looking at it through a lens to try to challenge ourselves. One of my favorite ways to do that is to flip it to test it. And would we use the same language if we were talking about a human? And yeah, it's a whole Pandora's box to open with language.
I've just
That's the one.
Yeah, I've just put the link into that. So if you people, after you've listened to this stream, if you want to take a look. Oh, my mum is also watching the live stream. Jose. Oh, hola, Miss. Hola, Mrs. Reza. I love you. So yeah, and finally, I'm going to share your webpage. Let's have a look. Where's it gone?
Yeah, and as Nell is saying in the comments, who's also on the Animal Rights Show, language is powerful. It can be a form of resistance, which I think it absolutely is. I think that's probably the most accessible tool we have is evolving our language. And every part of our advocacy, it doesn't even matter if we're doing demos where no one else is there. If we write a press release, what words are we going to use to directly convey our message, and to dismantle human superiority versus reinforce it. So, but yeah, the website's basically just funnels. So if you're vegan curious, it goes to this page, which is basically directs people to the Challenge 22 support program, which I'm guessing a lot of people are familiar with. And then the other side is for animal advocates. There's a few free downloads. There's a language document, which I kind of update every few months or so, and a discussion guide. And I've got a list of about 64 objections to veganism and animal rights, which I think we're all quite familiar with, and my kind of thoughts on how I'd respond to them, which also, continues to evolve. So, yeah.
Interesting, yeah. So, let's just drop this down. I've got what's this? Sometimes I mess up with my language, e.g. kill two birds with one stone. So hard to break, but I'm working on it.
That's a great example. Yeah. Because we don't want to be subtly sending the message that we're killing birds, do we? Especially as animal advocates. It's not that obvious because it's so ingrained. Just this morning, I had to stop myself from saying I was a bit antsy about something. And it's like, I've got nothing against ants, that they're just,
Yeah. It's, I personally, usually can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and that's one I use quite a lot, but I find sometimes it's the descriptions help, what you're trying to put across, but again, it is trying to, do you think there's a line, do you ever think that's just a little bit too far, or, so generally he's put an alternative up. Feed two birds with one scone. I like it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is I think, as I said before, obviously this is a very serious topic, but I think it's good to have fun with this. Your example of, can't make an omelet without breaking eggs kind of thing is, we could say, you can't start an animal sanctuary without liberating a couple of chickens. It's so you can pivot stuff that actually puts a positive and builds respect for our fellow animals versus reinforcing the status quo, which is typically disrespectful and reinforces their use. So before this, what sort of activism have you been involved in throughout the last 6 years? What sort of things have you been involved in? And well, when I first started living vegan, I was in Singapore. So there's basically no option to do street outreach. Very limited. You have to get approval beforehand, which basically means you're probably not going to get it. But real quickly on the language thing, I think a real key thing is I think when we're sharing these ideas, like we all have to find our own words that speak to us. So it's not a matter of us telling each other this is better than this and you're wrong, I'm right kind of thing. It's really just sharing ideas and chucking them all to the pot, and then we can all choose what works for us. But yeah, activism-wise, it was mainly started with street outreach. especially here in Brighton. When AV started here, and then we've got a really strong activist group. We did Down with Berries on a super recurring basis. Obviously, that's all been spanner thrown in the works. But I've just gotten out on the street the last 2 weeks. I've been out there a couple times, and I have brand new footage that's a super high impact, just like 10 seconds of egg footage of the sons who were killed and murdered through, I think we all kind of know that footage as animal advocates, and it just loops it. So, because the thing I've noticed is so many people walk by, and I know you've probably seen this, Dan, is, you doing street outreach, oftentimes, 99% of people just, look just for a moment. So it's like with any advertising, we want to give that moment like as much, emphasis as we can, mindfully.
Yeah, I mean, did you see, I don't know whether you've been on my community tab, but I've put a video up. There's a guy on YouTube called Crime Bodge, and he's, shall I say, he's anti-police. He's anti-bad police. Let's put it that way. He's anti-bad police, and he helps a lot of people who've been arrested and been victims of corrupt police, which I have personally. And he actually did a video, and I was surprised because he said, right, this is, and it's all about causing harassment, alarm and distress, which they seem to, the public order offences, which they seem to be using on people doing AV. The police, especially in Manchester. And he actually did Joey's video where the police approached Joey and said, we've had a phone call from the police, from somebody of the public, and they're offended by this. And at the end, he actually gives the law and speaks what you should say to them. And it's not actually committing an offence. You've got to show intent that you meant to cause harm or distress to somebody, which is practically impossible. So what the police do is they misuse this law, and people never understand it. So it's a really useful. In fact, I'm going to find it. I'm going to put it in the chat for people to have a look at when the stream finishes, because if you watch to the end, folks, he actually tells you what to say to the police if ever they do approach and say you're committing an offence, because it's not causing harassment, alarm and distress, public order. You're not actually committing an offence in itself until you're in, like, say you get a banner saying kill all Muslims. If you walk around with a banner saying kill all Muslims, your intent is to cause harm, distress or offence to somebody, and that is where you're committing an offence, because they can prove intent. Whereas showing legitimate legal slaughter footage is not in itself causing an offence. So yep. But we all need to be versed in the law, because everybody can come stuck in this quagmire of legislation that police seem to think that we're unaware of the law, and the police are even more unaware of the law than we are. I mean, I've come across it a lot because of photography. I mean, I don't know whether you go out with a camera, but you go out with a camera sometimes, especially DSLRs, and people see this big camera and they instantly get on the back foot and they think that it's an offence, but it's not. And yeah, so
that's actually it's a bit of a it's one of those projects I've just kind of, I've been doing a lot of animal videos that I've been prioritizing, but it's something I'm super keen to do a video about, because it's actually a couple of years old now. But I had several interactions with a local event here in Brighton, and they basically tried to remove me over the course of several weeks. And that really taught me to do my homework. I called the council. I confirmed that I had right to that space. So I've actually got my outreach bag here. I mean, I printed out all, like, I can link some of this stuff, but like my big talking point is, Article 11 of the Human Rights Act is the right to protest. I think that's probably the strongest piece of evidence we have. So I really, for those of you who are going to check out my channel, hopefully I'll get that out here soon, because I just want to have a really concise resource, because as animal advocates, we just have to think about so many different things, and it'd be great to be like, here's what you need to go on the street. And because the thing is, people will abuse power they don't even have. And yeah, they'll try to get us removed because they want to make the public happy that doesn't want us there. So if they can tell us something, they'll get us to move on. I don't think they care that much if it's actually enforceable or not.
I'm going to play this video. I mean, Tone seems to think the crime and sentencing bill is going to change all that, but I don't think it will. Personally, I don't think
TBD,
that's
right?
I don't think it's going to be directly, and I don't think the police are going to actually. They've got enough to do. They're short-staffed, and you may get one oddball copper who's sort of taking an offence, but I don't think that's going to be a major problem. But I'm going to play this just for a second, just for people to see what I was talking about.
An offence. The police officers here just cite the Public Order Act without stating which section, probably because they don't know. Ask the officers if they're aware that under Section 4, 4A and 5 of the Public Order Act, the behaviour must be threatening or abusive, or under 4 and 4A, insulting. It's highly unlikely you'll get any kind of comprehensible response to all that, but if you do, you can then play your trump card and ask them, what does Section 6 of the Public Order Act say? I can guarantee you they won't know. Section 6 is a key defence to the majority of unfounded and malicious prosecutions brought under the Public Order Act. And it was key to my acquittal when I was prosecuted maliciously by Officer Snowflake for saying no shit to him. And by the way, he didn't just try to prosecute me for causing him offence, of which he would have got nowhere, but rather for causing offence to a couple of brittle school kids he imagined were stood around at the time. Section 6 is key to any defence because it sets out the mens rea of all public order offences. Only Section 4A is absent, which already incorporates the mens rea of intention directly into the provision. Taking into account the interaction in this video, even if the stallholder did display a video that could be construed as threatening, abusive or insulting, he must have intended for it to be so before the offence could be made out. And the term insulting is absent from the element of offending under Section 5, but remains under Section 4 and 4A. But as the police failed to mention which section of the Public Order Act he is allegedly in breach of, then it's difficult to know whether or not the insulting element is being applied. But even if it were, it could still maintain a defence under Section 6 that nothing he did intended to be threatening, abusive or insulting. I'll give this guy his dues. He put up an excellent, reasoned arguments against obstinate hotheads who have not the least interest in deferring to him. He might just as well have argued string theory with a playground full of 5-year-olds. Because when it comes to face-offs in the street, the police are interested in one thing and one thing only, that you do as they say. He could equally have argued that...
Yeah, very interesting.
The other two things, just while we're on the topic, there's and some of this is country dependent. This is one that would speak to what you're talking about. It's just like literally photographer's rights. I mean, you have this, you don't have to memorize this stuff. Just print it out, and if oftentimes somebody comes over and they're like, "I'm calling the police if you don't go," and it's like, "All right, fine," and then you've got a chance to get your paperwork in order before they approach you often. But and just the basics. I mean, that's the key thing, like you said about like serious public order. So there's some subjective nature to this stuff, but I think we've just got to hold our ground, and there's different things that I think can be done with the footage too. I have various footage that some of it is quite clearly not distressing, so it's like I could always switch to that if I really needed to, and I'd probably be quite resistant to, but they should never move you on, really, unless, I mean, there's threats of violence or something like that you were saying earlier.
Yeah. I mean, if you were showing, I mean, I had Charlie Veach, who's supposedly a big free speech sort of advocate, and he was trolling us at the AV, and he's saying, well, what about little kids? Yeah, what about little kids? And it's like, I know people, in fact, I think it was Reese, somebody told me they'd seen a chicken or some other animal being killed live in front of them, and it didn't traumatize them, it set them on the path to being vegan. And I don't think kids, I mean, you look at Syria, what happened in Syria, these kids were living under the threat of every time a plane went over, somebody was going to get smashed to smithereens with a cluster bomb. And I'm not saying they've come out of it sort of totally scot-free, but they've certainly come out of it still level-headed. Children are very, very adaptable, and children are very, very honest and pragmatic when it comes to things like that. It's just people's perceptions that, oh, this is really going to traumatize kids. No, it isn't.
I think it comes from a place of deflection. I think it's actually the adults that are the most impacted. I think that the kids can oftentimes handle it better than their parents. But it brings up another point. Do we actually want I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but I focus more on our fellow animals' individuality, which I think you can do while it's still upsetting, but I show them at their end in the best way possible to try to carve out that, any implication that we can improve the way they're treated versus ending their breeding, use, and murder altogether. So I think when we do that, the police wouldn't have a ground to stand on,
So let's bring up the guy whose name shouldn't be. It's like Beetlejuice.
Don't say 3 times.
Don't say 3 times. But let's see if it happens. Let's try it. Roger Yates. Let's see if
there
it
he is
pops
in the
up.
comments.
So, the Animal Rights Show, which I've said it, Trash Carcass, it's too late, he's going to pop up. He'd probably pop up behind me somewhere. You jump on animal rights, but you two seem to be at loggerheads. You seem to, I don't mean this in a negative way, it's always a positive conversation that you two guys have. But you seem to be sort of have opposing views. Yes!
Check the comments.
Yes! He couldn't resist. His ego is way too big. Right, if anybody's any of my moderators on, please mute Roger Yates for 300 seconds, please.
Oh, that's classic.
He's behind you. I can't believe that. You must have been watching in the background, I'd like to think.
Real quickly, I saw the request for the links for the document, so let's definitely exchange details on that and get those links more widely circulated, because I need to do that anyway. It's been on my back burner for way too long.
Yeah, if you put it on a video or send it me as well, I'll throw it into the comments below this video as well. Once we finish. So, yeah. So what's the difference between your outlook and where is it you two guys disagree? Because I watched the Animal Rights Show. I know I've spoken to you about my potential ADHD problem, where I don't think in a logical sort of way. I'm sort of, as soon as something happens over there, that's in my head, and it's very hard to sort of, I've got to repeat. So I find it very hard to sort of watch Roger's streams and get what they're talking about, because it's just the language they use is sometimes not in my sort of scope. The words, some of the words they use. I'm not saying dumb it down, and what I'm saying is simplify it, because there's a lot of people like me out there who want to learn, but we're listening to this and we're not getting it. And this is why I sort of reached out to you, Jeremy, because you explain things in a simplified way so that people can get their heads around it, and so yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think to the first question, I think Roger and I agree on the vast majority of things. I think there's these very small nuances that we read differently. I think oftentimes the outcome is much the same anyway. But more to your point, I agree. Like, I think with animal advocates, I think I like to kind of explore language a little bit more. However, I'm on the street.
Right. So can I stop?
I try to keep it simpler. Yep.
Right. Nuances. I've Googled it. And I still don't understand what nuances mean. What does nuances mean?
Just like subtle differences. So, and that's exactly it. Like, I think a lot of times this language is it's yeah, it's intended to provide clarity, but actually it could be confusing the message. So I think that's exactly it. Is like any language, it's great to call out, like, hey, what is this? Because otherwise we're just gonna, we're gonna miss each other, aren't we? But yeah, for instance, the last live stream Roger and I did after a bit of a hiatus was whether or not the movement's human-centric or animal-centric, and I went through this list of reasons why I think it's human-centric. Even this is a complex topic too, but even from a abolitionist or animal rights perspective, I think a lot of the things we do are still human-centric without even knowing it. For instance, sliding into animal welfare, I think it's quite an easy thing to do. Well, being honest though, I think like language is such a complex thing, because even when we both think we have like an understanding of a word, like the recent video series I've been doing, there was a so-called hunter talking about how they love and respect the innocent individuals who they're murdering. So, I mean, if you're having a conversation with someone like this, like first it's like the definition of terms, like how do you define love and respect? Because all of a sudden these words are being chucked about, and we're, my version of love and respect are two very different things than theirs. So,
Yeah. I mean, generally it comes up, she's only joking, like Jimmy doesn't know nuance, but you've got to be sort of in circles where you use certain words. I drive trucks all day on my own, and I go in somewhere and I never use this sort of language. I'm not in these circles where certain words are used. I'm still at the stage of trying not to say it for animals. I use them, and I'm getting very good at that now, and I understand that side of things. I understand human-centric and animal-centric. I'm not quite sure how it fits in at the moment, so I'm hoping you can clear that up for me. But I feel, if I've got in my understanding of human-centric, is we've got to sort of apply it to the humans, about humans, to get them to understand. We've got to put things in a human perspective for them to understand, because at the moment I feel people aren't ready to associate pigs, chickens, ducks, cows, dairy. They're not ready to sort of see those as sentient beings at the moment. They're not in that mindset. I mean, I'll give you an example. Today, up on the roof here, there was a squirrel stuck. It was just sat there. It'd been there like 3 hours on the roof. And I actually threw a little pebble up to scare it, to see if it moved, because I didn't know whether it had just froze in fear. How it got up there, I don't know. Maybe cats had chased it up there. And then about 10 o'clock this morning, my wife rang me and she went, "Have you noticed that squirrel on the roof?" And I went, "Yeah." And she went, "Oh, I'm really worried about it." Right? So I said, "Well, I'm going to go round and see if I can put a plank up so it can get down from the roof." Then it started raining, and it sort of built up its courage, and it jumped onto this roof, and it finally got away. I've been giving it my avocado seeds and everything, this squirrel. But the thing was, my missus, she's so worried about this squirrel while she's at work serving bacon sandwiches, animal flesh sandwiches. And I'm like to her, "Don't you see? You're so worried for the squirrel, but you've got no compassion for the animals that you're serving up to people to eat." And it's... So this human-centric thing, yeah, you've got to... It's a tough one.
Yeah, because I mean, humans are our audience. Because, yeah, I mean, like you said, like we kind of form a lot of these bubbles, and I think the great thing about these live streams is we can kind of break out of them a little bit, so we can kind of learn from each other. Because otherwise, I do think it's very limiting to just kind of stay within the same circle and use the same language and not really break out of that. But yeah, I mean, the biggest example for me that I kind of focused on a lot with the last live stream was the whole go vegan for animals, earth, and health. I mean, that's a 3-part claim that all of a sudden the animals are only one element of, which, roughly, call it a third of our message is them, and the other 2/3 is not. And I appreciate there's some environmental relations to our fellow animals, but oftentimes it's a human environmental concern, it's not mindful of who else is living there. So that to me is a big example that I went through, because I think a lot of the debate that's been happening in the movement, one of the critiques is that the focus is shifting too much to humans, and I think there's a lot of examples where it is. So that's really kind of where I'm coming at it.
Yeah, the straw thing, I mean, even some of my family have bought like bamboo straws, and it's like, stop eating fish. If you're worried about the ocean, stop eating fish.
It's not just the straws.
We've got the problem with the mask, with all these masks now. We're going to have a layer. I mean, during World War I in France, if you go and dig now, there's actually a geological layer of metal that's ingrained into the soil all over France and Belgium, because there was that many shells. And I think we're going to see a layer of masks, because apparently they take hundreds of years to degrade and break down, and we're going to have major problems with that.
Yeah, I just saw Race Lover's comment. I mean, I agree. All those 3 things are connected. I think it's just it comes down to framing. Because to me, 80-90% should be focused on our fellow animals, and then the other peripheral topics we should kind of have like ready to go, but not kind of on our leading point. So it's there's some links. I did a timestamp for the chat I had with Roger. There's some links that take us specifically to how to apply the whole Roger's concept, basically, of focus versus scope. So there's the focus that you focus on, and then there's the scope of everything else that is kind of related.
Right, explain that to me. Right, make me understand this. Right, so here we go. It's me. I've got sexy music on. It's my alarm, and for some reason I said it was like I think it's a Roger Yates alarm. So yeah,
Roger's calling you on the cell.
Right, so come on, Jeremy, make me understand this scope and what was it? The scope and
focus. So
focus,
yeah, so
right. That's the
so
trouble I have with it. Focus.
So I guess if you were to think about like circles, like the middle part of the circle is the focus, and then outside, if there's a second circle overlapping that, would be the scope. And that's your things like the environment and human health and soil concerns and all that. The middle is our fellow animals and ending their breeding, use, and murder.
Okay, so if I had a pair of binoculars and I was focused on an animal, that's my focus. And then the scope is what I can see in the peripheral all the way around.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So simple.
Yeah.
But how does that help? Because I think I use that anyway, because when I'm talking to people and I talk about the animals and I see that disconnection is not salvageable, they're not going to see the animals, I then look at them and think, okay, do you look healthy? Do you look like you're concerned about your health? How old are you? You know, are you getting to middle age where a lifetime of eating animal products is going to manifest itself and start giving the problems that are associated with it? And then if they're not interested in health and they don't care, well, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, so I don't care about my health, you know? Then do we focus on environment, you know? So I sort of use different tools. I mean, you wouldn't say if they don't get the animal thing, if they can't sort of get this sort of cognitive thing away, and they can't see animals as animals, as living, breathing, sentient beings, only food, would you walk away from that conversation?
That's a really tricky question. I think it depends.
It's not tricky for me, because I wouldn't walk away. I'd start moving down the health route, and I'd do anything to try and get them to change. I'd lie to them.
Well, what if there's someone else who had just stopped, who may be open-minded to the ethical points? That's where I would be like, all right, this conversation's going nowhere, because we've all been in those conversations that go on a bit too long. And I prefer, there's 99% of the population that supports animal use, so I prefer to focus on the low-hanging fruit, who is open to the ethical concern, because that's the most, and this is, I can link research later that's specific around animal advocacy around this, but that's the biggest motivator for change, the biggest change, and also the most likely to stay vegan, is the ethical point. So that's where I drive that home, because oftentimes if people bring up health or the environment, it's usually positive. So I'm like, yep, you're right. Now let's bring it back to our fellow animals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you've exhausted it, we can start touching on health side of things, and then we can always bring it back to animals. But I think personally that toolbox of, I mean, obviously if you've got no sort of info and you're not very clued up on health, you shouldn't even tackle it. You shouldn't tackle anything that you haven't got at least a bit of info on. But I see that as a bit of a wasted opportunity if someone's going to walk away when you could pique their interest. Let's say a bodybuilder comes up and he's big, tough, macho bodybuilder. He's bought into this sort of, eat meat, men barbecue, all this caveman eat meat, strong fire, all this bullshit, yeah? And he's not listening. And then you say, well, did you know that vegans have more serum testosterone than non-vegans? Did you know that? And that one thing may get them to start listening to your message a little bit more. And what I'm getting from you is that you wouldn't do that, that you'd just walk away from that conversation. This is the bit that I don't understand. I know you've got research on it all, but I couldn't personally do that.
I wouldn't. It wouldn't be black and white for me. I'd just walk away once someone's not open to it. I think there's a lot of different ways we can go. I mean, for those of us who aren't queued up on nutrition, I think that just refer them to Game Changers. I mean, it has a reducitarian message, which is another topic. But there's great documentaries out there. I think if we can point people to those, that's probably gonna be stronger than us all doing our own individual research. But I think the biggest thing when it comes to health is we've got two things to decide between. Do we say there's no nutritional requirement, or do we say it's better for us? Now, I'm very firmly in the camp of no nutritional requirement or no biological requirement. And I just reference, there's one for basically every country, but for the UK, the Dietetics Association clearly says every stage of life, there's no nutritional requirement to eat or use our fellow animals. So I go with that. And then oftentimes people say, oh, they'll critique the Dietetics Association and all this stuff. And once people reject that statement, to me, I know the conversation's unlikely to go anywhere. But I mean, for some people, I completely agree. There is this benefit to the whole attractivism and almost like, for lack of a better explanation, like using our bodies to help communicate our morals. But it's not for everyone. And I think the flip side of it is I don't think animal advocates should feel pressured to have this perfect body. And if they're not doing it, they're not doing it right. And, for some, great. But for others, like, it's not necessary, I don't think, to communicate a clear message of animal rights.
Right.
There's a lot in that, so I'm not sure. I don't want to go on too long, but I have a lot of thoughts around that.
Yeah, I mean, you could go on as long as you want, mate. There's no time limit. I have no problem with you going off in your tangent because I want everybody here to learn something from this. I want people and me to walk away with something useful because I'm for the animals, full stop, and that's it. And anything that I even watch Roger. I mean, me listening to Roger, but I even look at what Roger's talking about in case I can reap something that is useful to me. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, Roger, so don't start on me. But in the last 5 years, okay, since I've been vegan, I went vegan 4.5 years ago, and in those 4.5 years, I've seen things snowball enormously. Now, what do you think's caused that? Do you think it's the culmination of everything that's gone before it, or do you think something's happened is some sort of tactic or some sort of activism? What's changed that all of a sudden? What has sort of made this snowball suddenly happen? Because back in 2006 there were 150,000 vegans in the UK. In 2000, what we are now, 21. In 2015-16, I think there was 600,000. So it's catapulted. They reckon there's 1.5 million in the UK now.
Yeah, I think getting into studies, real quickly, my poorly timed laugh was in response to Race Lover, not what you were saying, but false, Jeremy, if you eat vegans, you won't get enough vitamin BS. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, I think with studies, I know, especially when early days as an animal advocate, I think, and this is a big movement question too, is like, how much should we focus on winning versus it being a marathon versus a sprint? And I know early days I was like, right, let's do this. Let's end the animal holocaust. Let's do it right now. Like, I want to do everything I can, just make it freaking stop. I mean, I was reflecting the other day, like, I'm 39, nearly 40, and I'm standing on a street with a laptop just trying to get people to stop rounding up, little people. Like, it's really just mind-boggling, actually. But yeah, that's definitely tangent territory. So, I mean, I think, to me, I like to look at those things as a bonus versus a reason for starting to live vegan, because I think if we focus on the potential health benefits, if people don't get them, they'll be disappointed and possibly even more likely to go back. And I've had loads of health benefits. I mean, I do cycling, jiu-jitsu. I've done both of those for a number of years, and I just, like, off the charts, like, just felt like a new person. But I wouldn't want to send the message veganism as a diet either. So I think there's a lot looped up in that. And I know it's how we do it. But to me, it's our fellow animals. And if someone comes up to me and they're like, hey, about my sports, I'm happy to go there. But yeah, to me, it's just, redirecting the focus. Because back to your earlier point, I mean, I think as far as moving on, when people aren't, if the disconnection is not salvageable, I think you said, I think until they see our fellow animals as individuals, which basically everyone's had an interaction with a dog or a cat or someone else. Like, I like to stay there. I like to live in that space with them and keep pulling them back to it. I mean, even so-called hunters, I've had, see them get quite emotional when they think about those times when it wasn't a quick, clean kill, as if that even matters. And so I think everybody has a compassionate angle to them, and the possibility for respect. Besides maybe the 1% to 2% that's clinically psychopathic or sociopathic. So I think for the most people, I like to live in that space as much as possible and keep that focus on the animals.
Even if my vegan diet cut my life short, I would still do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's because it was interesting, some of the wording on the Beagle campaign, talking about the needless research, because I think that the counter to that is, oh, well, it is needed. And I think, Roger here, he'll be happy for me to use the terminology. Like, even if it was needed, it would still be a rights violation. If you could test on me and have some ailment you're combating, and it helped you, so it was needed, it would still be violating my rights as a human. So I think there is, there's a lot around the framing of that. So
self-preservation is wrong.
Race Lover always gets me going in the comments. I'm like trying, like I have this point that I'm trying to hone in on. I see one of Race Lover's comments and just completely lose my track. Yeah.
What I find problematic for our activism is bringing politics into it. Now, I've got a view on this, Jeremy, and
yeah, let's go there.
Well, my view on politics is this, right? You've got to bring politics into it somewhere along the line, right? Because our goal at the moment is to get a percentage of the UK vegan. Okay? That is the goal. Once we get to that percentage, then we've got influence on government. Then we can start making tracks towards stopping subsidies to farmers and towards fishing. And this knock-on effect. Now, that's how I see it. But at the moment, I think focus at the moment should be on advocacy and getting those numbers up. And I think it's moving in the right direction, and I think it's snowballing right now. Predictions are 3.5 million by the end of 2021 vegans in the UK. So we are moving towards that. But I think politics are going to come into it, and I see Roger Yates and his band of merry men and ladies as the political side of it. I don't know whether Roger will agree with that or not, and whether you'll agree with that, Jeremy, but I see myself as like we said before, I see myself as like the bicep and fists fighting away on the streets, doing what I can, reporting, getting footage, doing this and doing that. And I see the Animal Rights Show, you and Roger and the rest of the guys, Tom, of getting this political side of it. I mean, I was going to do a comparison to something in Ireland, but I don't think it's a very good comparison at all, so I won't do that comparison. Rebecca Brooks says, sadly, it's the democratic socialists who are the ones pushing the subsidies.
Yeah, well, and just a quick pitch, anybody who's watching who isn't already following Catherine Klein or Seb Alex, I'm guessing you're familiar with both those channels, but yes. They've both just done videos around individual versus system change, which are fantastic. I highly recommend them. I think the big question is when. I think you hit the nail on the head. To me, when 99% of the population opposes us, in one of Catherine's videos, she used the analogy of prohibition. You force these legislations in that the public doesn't support, they'll push back. So we can't, even if we sign something into law today that you can't, all forms of animal use is illegal. It just wouldn't work. There's a certain percent has to support something before there's widespread adoption. And Roger can speak to this far better than me. I mean, I've seen figures everywhere from 10% to 25%. And everything in between. To me, I think looking at those surveys and all that, and the growth rates and all this can be kind of disheartening sometimes too, because either they're not growing fast enough or they're unreliable. But to me, it's like our job's the same. We still have to do what we're doing regardless of the outcome. So I've tried to remove myself from the big picture in that sense and just really focus on what I can do. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, this brings me on to another thing as well. and I know there's been lots of talk about the intersectional side of things, and I want to know how does that affect me? I don't understand how that affects me personally in my activism and what I am trying to do. I'm just wondering if you've got an idea on that, whether it affects you or whether anybody should really sort of be thinking along these lines. Does it really work? Is it necessary? Will it help in any way?
Yeah, I think it goes back to our conversation about focus versus scope, and I think regardless, I think the I word has become quite polarizing. So I think of it just as human rights, which, another topic is, whether or not we take a rights-based approach or not. But if we talk about, animal rights and someone says, animals don't have rights, I think it's quite a good counter to say, well, do you think humans have rights? And respond that in that way. And we're not centering humans when we do that, but we're using that knowledge to build the case for our fellow animals. So that's just one example. I could probably list off about 20 of how we can use these peripheral issues to strengthen our case. And to me, that's what it's really about.
Actually, we know you say that. Going back to Charlie Veitch again, he said, he said to me, well, how do you think people would react if you were showing someone beating up another human or raping somebody? And I said, well, they're protected. The humans are protected from that. Animals aren't protected from this sort of stuff. So yeah, I do understand that. Let's have a look at some of these comments. Would you agree we're not going to grab a pussy veganism? I'm missing something there. I've jumped in a very opportune time.
Yeah, I think that Roger has some videos around that. I think it has to refers to the whole Trump presidency and all that.
I think it's in reply to this. When you hear that people on the right can't be vegan, it's just like, how on earth does that bring us closer to animal liberation? Is that what do you think what he's replying to?
Yeah, well, I think there's a big discussion because I've done some live streams that around that topic, and I think I've noticed sometimes that politics are brought up. I think politics are inevitable. It's very difficult to remove ourselves from politics. I mean, subsidies is the easiest example, but we're humans, living in this complicated world, and politics is a big part of that. So it's really difficult to carve that out and just talk about animal use. I think when we can, we should, but I think it's inevitable to come up at some stage in conversations and in the movement in general.
Yeah. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing, and I mean, I don't personally vote. I think I've voted once in my life because, for the simple reason is nothing that anybody in power has helped me in any way since leaving school, and that's only my personal view because of personal experiences. But not everyone on the right is Trump. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, there's definitely a conversation going on here in the chat.
Sounds like the next live stream might be queuing up.
Yeah, definitely.
Between a couple of people in the chat, that'll be good.
The Vegans for Trump groups, yeah. I mean, this thing about Trump as well. I've never been a Trump supporter, but I've always sort of looked at government and thought we need businessmen in charge of the country, because that's what it's all about. It's all about business and trying to make the country more sort of richer, profitable, to give better conditions for people, and the Tories don't seem to do that. Labour seem to be more sort of for the working classes, but again, when you get into that sort of state, it's the elites and the rich that are in charge, and the government seems to be just puppets doing because as soon as you start affecting big business, they've got a lot of clout, like the big pharmaceutical industry, the animal agricultural industry, some of the biggest companies in the world. It's like they've got the real influence on everything, and that's who we seem to be fighting.
Yeah, because Roger and I did a live stream a while back. I think it was something called, Can Conservatives Be Vegan? Something, good for the YouTube algorithms and all that. But Yeah, I think we did a detailed analysis, and the reality is, with the exception of some very small parties that are starting to emerge, basically every mainstream party supports animal use, like across the board. So to me, it's kind of like we were saying earlier, like until there's more mainstream adoption, it's a bit of a moot point to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I do think who we vote for matters. I'm not trying to say it doesn't, but from a truly ending animal use perspective, I think Labor is better than the Green Party, and a number of the examples that were given on that live stream, which shocked me.
Just using common sense, if you got a member of parliament looking for votes and he come up and said, right, vote for me, I support the animal agricultural industry, people are with him. But as soon as that same MP said, right, I want to ban all animal agriculture in the UK, he wouldn't even get a look in. It's just no chance whatsoever. So even if politicians were with us on this, they wouldn't be able to campaign because the majority will not stand for that. It's still not a feasible sort of idea at the moment. But how?
Well, and
far
I
in the
just see in the
future?
comments. I see in the comments. My position is that conservatives can be vegan, and I think there is some nuance. Back to the N word, but not that N word, but nuance around that. But yeah, so I think politics does help to shape our worldview, but I think veganism is compatible with not everything, but a lot of things. So
I mean, even if you look at, let's say the UK did go sort of vegan. They did do this, the savings that it's just things like, I'm going to talk about the health thing. I know you don't like talking about the health thing, but
no. Yeah, we can.
even if the UK went totally vegan, you would see the rates of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, cancers. You'd see them drop. And you'd see a totally different sort of attitude in the UK if it did happen. It's definitely.
There's bits of history that point to that. Like in World War II, when the Germans took away the cow's body to be eaten, and gave it to the German soldiers versus the locals of the countries that they'd taken over, that you saw death rates drop in a lot of, I've got a chart that just drops straight off, and then once the war's over, it goes right back up to where it was. So I mean, I think there is some indication of that. Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, I think there is some information about, because we got rationed during the war in the UK. We got ration books, so we didn't get dairy, eggs, a lot of meat. It was all like there was some sort of egg substitute and everything, and milk powder, and they said then that the rates of stroke, heart attack suddenly dropped as well. I'm sure that's somewhere about. I'd love to find that. If you see how close the election was, you're basically saying that 50% of the US public can't be vegan because of who they voted for. This is human-centric reasoning. Oh, trash is on it as well. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, the human-centric point there is there too. Yeah, because Stacey and I just did a live stream a week or two ago around that too. So what do you think about the language thing? What role do you think language plays in our animal advocacy? If I can fire one back at you.
Yeah, so language. I think language is important. It's very important. I'm not sure about the triggering effects and all that. I'm not really up to speed on that. I wouldn't want to turn somebody away for using words like holocaust and rape. I use sexual abuse, sexual exploitation. I try to speak about numbers and get people to say this sounds like a holocaust, and I have been more mindful, and I do agree that language is very, very important. You called animals people earlier, and I subscribe to that, because the word person is short for personality, and all animals are personalities. So I can see that we can call them person. It's a bit sort of pushing it out there, calling them people, but I wouldn't have a problem saying, look, these are personalities. You're hurting a person here. I wouldn't have a problem with that. So I think it can sort of break down those barriers, and I do get what you mean by that. I do understand it. It is, but on the flip side of the coin is, in certain areas, in certain societies, trying to think of something that will get them to see the scale of things, like saying Holocaust, is very important in some areas. I don't think it's going to cause offence, because a lot of people, especially because, as in Israel is one of the biggest vegan per capita countries in the world. So I think other people are offended for the Jews when we compare it to a Holocaust. And I don't think it's Jewish people themselves who are actually offended by us using this comparison. But again, you've got to use context when you're using the word Holocaust.
Definitely. Well, and I think it's also important to unpack, where's the offense coming from, or as some may say, harm. Because, the two things I'd say around that, the first thing is around not causing harm. I mean, the whole thing behind Never Again is that we talk about Holocaust so they don't happen again, the Nazi Holocaust or any Holocaust for that matter, including the animal Holocaust. So to me, the harm point, is inconsistent, because we should talk about human Holocaust at a minimum. So why not, our fellow animals? The second thing I'd say is I think it's difficult to navigate every single context perfectly. And we've got to figure out when to use this language, but where is it actually coming from? Because ultimately the main thing is the so-called animalization of humans being compared to our fellow animals, that humans are worthy of being victims of a Holocaust, and our fellow animals aren't. And that's usually, that's speciesism. That's exactly the conversation I want to have with people, is why do you think why is one group worthy of it and the other isn't? Yeah, some people are going to be so shut down. They're going to, like you said earlier, they're going to come up and, be shut down in the message from the start point. But I think we should definitely consider this language, because it's not like things are moving too fast. We want to do everything we can, and that's where I think language is such a great tool when we use it mindfully. Yeah, there's a bit going on in the chat there now, isn't it?
But we can deny that it's accurate. You just need to be sure that you can keep the conversation on track and don't become derailing. That's easier said than done, though.
Yep.
The more chats you do, the better you become at directing and taking cues from people. But I think when it comes to outreach and advocacy, you've really got to sort of, is victim a good word? You've really got to weigh up the person that you're talking to and sort of quickly direct them in a certain way. I had a guy, and he was he was a born again Christian, and he was quoting Bible quotes at me, and it was just, and I did lose it. I didn't speak back to him after one point, because I did start saying, well, if you take other passages in the Bible literally, if you've got to then go to any non-Christian cities, you've got to kill all the men and take all the women and girls slaves if you're taking your Bible literally. So you've really got to sort of look at who you're talking to and tailor it to them. But again, the language you use has got to be correct, because as soon as you start saying it and making them sound like they are nothing and are products, and it can be quite harmful. But on the flip side as well, if you are comparing animals' lives to human lives and atrocities to human atrocities, that can be quite triggering and turn people off. It can really turn people off the subject straight away if they think, oh, you're saying animals should be equal to humans, and well, no, and that's not what I'm trying to say.
Well, and equal in what sense? Like at a basic moral level, we are all equal. So it's
yeah. I mean,
it's not a matter of giving them the right to drive and all this stuff. But.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I say. Is I don't want animals to have the vote and to get a driving license and be you have to register each one at the town hall when it's born and a death certificate. I don't want all that. I just basic rights, the rights to life, the rights to autonomy, the rights to freedom, which some humans aren't born into. I mean, we are very lucky that we were born in a Western country. This piece of land I was born on I'm happy I was born on this piece of land, If I'd been born on another piece of land with a certain border around it, things might have been totally different.
Well, and that's a whole nother thing, because I know when I did the research around the animal holocaust debates I did with Roger, it really affected me, because I think I'm very narrowed in on speciesism and human superiority and just animal use in general, and when we live in a world that's willing to do the things to humans, our fellow humans, that we are, like, our fellow animals don't have a chance, and that's what really. I think that's a big challenge for us to overcome. But.
It is, because we are a vicious species. Humans are a vicious species. I mean, you've only got to look at children's attitudes in playgrounds. They're very vicious. They find a difference in another child, and it's relentless. It's relentless. And when you mix that in with speciesism and say, you love this puppy but hate that pig, it's really tough. I mean, I do speak a lot about my granddaughter, and my granddaughter thinks I'm talking absolute baloney when I say that she's eaten a dead animal. She cannot believe it, But I must admit, I was sat here today on this sofa behind me, and my wife was doing the shopping. She said, "What do you want?" "I'm going to go to Iceland." I said, "Will you get me some chicken, please?" She knows what I mean. She means the vegan chicken strips from Iceland. And I heard my granddad say, "Grandad, you're having chicken. That's not vegan." And she understood that. But she still doesn't understand the concept that animals have to be killed for her to eat. And I don't know what age it's going to be where she's going to comprehend that. She's 4 now, she's 5, she just started school. But I know people like UK Vegan Family Jack is at a similar age, maybe he's a little bit older, and he's well on top of it now. He's very vocal about it, so he gets the concept. So unless the mum and dad are sort of saying, "Don't listen to your granddad," because that can happen as well, Jeremy.
Yeah.
They don't want.
There's layers to it, isn't there? Yeah.
Exactly. Do they want their child to go vegan and have to think about a whole new sort of way of feeding that child? So ice cream's gone unless you get vegan ice cream. All the meats, the animal body parts, you've got to replace them. The drinks, certain drinks, Vimto, it's like, it's a whole hornet's nest, and people aren't up for that. If they don't want to do it themselves,
The response I'd have to that is, do we want to teach our children to oppose violence? Because that's, to me, what it's all about. Like, there's some great young animal advocates. Like, I'm familiar with activists, yeah.
But do you know something, though? Zactivist is 13, 14 years old. I wouldn't expect anybody of that... Oh, what have you broke? I wouldn't expect anybody of that age not to be able to comprehend this. I think once you reach 9, 10 years old, I think you're quite aware, and your brain is sort of, you can understand it. You can understand the concepts. All these shitty child books where abuse is not. Yeah. There's a lot of literature out there that sort of doesn't help our matters much either.
Stacey's point, I think, is excellent. Children are a reflection, presumably Stacey's saying, of their parents, and I think that's absolutely true. It's, I know it was true for me. I didn't actually want to support animal use as a child. Like, it, looking back, how long does it take to get it? I mean, it took me 32 years. So, as someone for yourself, I know it's like, it's not difficult. It is very difficult to go against mainstream society in a lot of ways. We should absolutely do it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Leon, yeah, people are lazy, and it does take some creativity, but it is. The thing is, when you're in a set routine, people are very selfish. I'd say they're not lazy; they're just selfish because it's easy. You go into the supermarket, you know what to grab off those shelves. People have busy lives. They have jobs. If you work a 12-hour shift, you got to come home. You've got time to throw something together before you're back in bed, ready to start again the next day. And there's more nuances to it. Hey!
I
like that. Oh, Cross Carcass, she's drunk again. I don't know when you will end this, so I just want to make sure you plug our birthday live on the 18th. So yeah, people, we're having a live stream. My birthday's on the 19th of July when lockdown ends in the UK. No more wearing masks, apparently. And I think Josh Carcass is the 17th. I think it's the few days before. So we're having a live stream. It's on Josh Carcass's channel, so please join us for that. I might even drink and get drunk and just be horrible. Even more horrible.
That sounds like fun.
Vegan Mooncat says, I've told my kids the truth and even let them watch the truth in video form. They need to know the severity before it truly sinks in. Yeah, but you're going to traumatize your kids, Vegan Mooncat. What are you doing? They'll be traumatized.
Yeah.
No, you're just being a dick.
Trolling you in the comments.
Yeah, Race Lever's got some sort of reservist views on all this COVID thing.
I think probably the last thing that really comes to mind that I think is worth talking about is I'd be curious about your views on the discussion about abuse language versus use language.
Right.
Have you kind of formed some thoughts around that, or
just explain again what you mean by that abuse?
Yeah, so I guess when I say abuse language, that includes like cruelty or suffering or even talking about conditions. Like to vegans, to animal advocates, like I think most of us, if not all of us, agree that all use is abuse. But to our target audience, a lot of non-vegans, a lot of speciesists would say, okay, well, we just won't abuse them, but we'll still use them. And our own movement is telling them this same message with a lot of campaigns, the happy eggs and all this stuff. So do you think that there could be some strength in being more objective and talking about ending animal use? And then we're all talking about the same thing? Because I think oftentimes non-vegans think, oh yeah, that's fine. I'm opposed to abuse. But they're not necessarily going to start living vegan because of that, because this lie that you can have non-abusive use is I think it's possibly even deeper than speciesism, but they're obviously related. So it's like
right.
Because any of this language we use, like non-vegans are going to take the out if we give them one. So I just prefer to shut that door in the first place.
Wow. Right.
There's a first time for everything, Roger.
So a recent story in the news, Jeremy, is that they are now going to ban cooking lobsters live in boiling water. And I think that speaks to me about what you're saying. Now, that would make non-vegans... they're not getting abused anymore because now they have to be stunned before they put in boiling water.
Exactly.
They'll
keep eating and using lobsters and whoever else.
I get
Or CCTV cameras, the Humane Slaughter Act, all this stuff that our own movement supports. I mean, for those who know Peter Singer and the Animal Liberation book, I mean, Singer openly advocates for humane killing, and he's one of the most prolific people in the movement. Is this the dramatic point where we zoom in? Our own movement promotes animal use. What are we doing?
Yes! I heard my own echo then in your earphones. Wow, that was weird. Yeah. Wow, yeah, I do get that. So what you're saying is that we should try and focus more on the use rather than highlight the abuse that is going on, because if people say, Well, if they stop the abuse, then that's fine. That is getting us nowhere. I get it. What do you people think about this out there? What is your thoughts? Because I've just sort of had a little bit of a realization there that makes sense, Jeremy. I've learned something. Hang on.
Me too.
I've learned something.
Hey! Well, I think that's exactly it. And I mean, I'll put my hand up. I was vegetarian and pescatarian for 12 years. I fell for that lie. So, like, that's why I'm very careful not to, give people that out. Because I took it myself for over a decade. I thought it was, I thought I was centering our fellow animals and doing those actions. And it's really, I bought the cage-free eggs myself. Like, obviously I know that's all nonsense now. And even if there was a humane use, like, that still would, from an animal rights perspective wouldn't matter. But
I mean, I've got a view on this because I'm a big believer and I'm active in exposing abuse. And I've just seen, who was it? I'm going to do a video on it. Ayrton, animal, he did the Dairy Still Kills video. And he's just brought out a slaughterhouse footage showing vets laughing at abuse, where these farmers and these slaughterhouse workers are abusing the animals. So what would you say about that? Do you think that's still relevant, that's still useful? Because I personally think that we should keep on exposing these abuses, because vets, to me now, are the shit on my shoes. They're only here for two things, right? They're here to keep our pets healthy, or they're to keep animals healthy until they go to slaughter. There's no other reason for them to be here, or to help procreate more animals for abuse. I hate vets. I would just ignore. I don't like vets whatsoever. I think it's a non-profession. It's disgusting.
The one thing I'd add to that is I think from an animal sanctuary perspective, vet care is incredibly expensive. I actually pondered going to vet school to prepare myself to either go to different sanctuaries to help, lower those costs by doing the things I could do myself. And, I didn't for a variety of reasons. But but bar none, I mean, speciesists are everywhere, including in the, so-called vet field. So,
Definitely.
Well, I think to the comments in the chat around Singer, he identifies as a flexible vegan, which I believe he specifically explains is when he's traveling and it's inconvenient, he'll make exceptions. So who knows what all that means? But it's clearly not, a clear end all animal use message.
You see, I mean, I heard you talk about something as well about when people actually go vegan, and I think people go vegan in an instant, and I think what happens after that is they either take to the lifestyle straight away, or it happens over months or years. But I think in people's minds, they go vegan straight away. There's no transition. There's no slow movement towards veganism. I think in the minds they are vegan, but then they've got to work out how they adopt that lifestyle and how they go down that road of making their life vegan, Because I found that really interesting as well.
Well, and Roger and I did a discussion around this. We framed it around dogs and children. But the other question is, are we actually born vegan, born with this intrinsic value to respect our fellow animals, at least most of us, carving out the small percentage that are,
psychopaths
by nature. Yeah, clinically, not from an ableist perspective, but clinically that characterization. But actually taught speciesism and animal use and all this other crap. I mean, that was definitely myself, and I suspect many others. So there's a lot to unlearn when it comes to that.
I mean,
I agree with I agree with Leon's comment that they're taught speciesism in their vet careers. I think they're taught it beforehand, and it's perpetuated throughout that career.
Well, the whole thing's based on it, but again, Defender of Animals says there's a lot of vets out there who are, but it's a rarity. I mean, people, the average person, if you went to universities all over the country and asked them why they're being vets, what would their answer be? And a lot of them end up unemployed and having to work in these animal. I don't think people go out to work in these places, or maybe they do. Maybe the money's good. I don't know. Why do people become vets in the first place? What is it? Is it? It's weird, isn't it? Why would you become a vet?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's definitely a line to be drawn. In my view, I think that it's a spectrum. I think someone who cares for, dogs and cats, which I would say is a form of animal use. I think it quite blatantly is. But I think there's a difference between that and going into so-called farms, which I think farm is another euphemism for animal use. But going into these places where they're literally just breeding, using, and murdering individuals, that to me, I think, takes a whole different, personality, I think, to do that kind of work, if we want to call it work.
Vets originally thought they were going to be there for the animals, yet they get pushed into animal life because there's no jobs. Yeah.
That was part of the reason I didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
and in dissecting and all that, you basically have to support animal testing and all this other crap. So, yeah.
Yeah, we are, old boy. Yeah, I think so. I agree with that, because there's no way on this earth would any child left to their own devices would feel a need to go and kill an animal for food in this modern day age. There's no way. Not even in the wild, it's. I don't think.
I think we're taught it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely taught. I love animals, which they might, but they will go home and eat animals also. The same zookeepers. Ask a zookeeper why they do that job, and we'll wait for the next bit.
Part two.
I think a lot of people want to become vets for the same reason, want to become doctors, caring for animals, people, and good money. Unfortunately, the first part is not always a reality. Yeah, it is. Yeah, psychopaths are not born vegan. Maybe not. How were we born understanding a justice-based philosophy?
Yeah, so there's about a 2-hour discussion I think I had with Roger on that topic. It's funny, in the last 90 minutes or so, I think we've touched on maybe half a dozen chats I've had with Roger that are all like massive 2-3 hour discussions. So we've done a good whistle-stop tour, I think, of a lot of these really key topics.
Yeah. I mean, it's very important. I mean, I like to just hark back to the fact that if you stop eating, abusing, stop buying animal products, including clothes, leather, wool, stop it completely, that equates to 136 to 150 animals' lives a year. And to me, that's the most important thing. Is once that person takes that dive and does refrain from this, it's a lot of lives saved. And yeah, it's very important that we learn every tool that we can possibly use. Now, a lot of people on here sort of kick back, the intersectional side of things, but people are only put off from the intersectional side of things because simply there's a lot of bad intersectionals out there who cause bad arguments on social media and split the movement in half.
Don't you think both sides haven't exactly contributed to a positive discussion, though?
In what way?
I don't think it's just the intersectionals that have been adding fuel to the fire.
Oh no! I do think it's a two-sided thing. But again, I see that, and it just breaks my soul in half, because I think while you lot are doing this, back to the 150 animals a year, while you lot are doing this and talking and trying to thrust this idea out over here in the slaughterhouse, this is what really sort of pisses me off. Is thing like dramas like the AV drama with Joey Carbstrong, all this other dramas going on, it breaks things up, and it makes my heart bleed, because while you're all trying to thrash these stupid ideas out, we could be doing better things. And then when people on the outside are looking in, who may be drawn towards veganism, see this shit going on, they're like, I don't want any of that, mate. No, thank you very much. I'll stay away from that. Look at them. They're fucking bonkers, the lot of them. And I see things in a very pragmatic sort of way sometimes, a very black and white, and very tunnel vision. I do have tunnel vision because, like I said, ADHD doesn't allow me to sort of think logically and in steps, and I get ideas from all over the place, and I've really got to mull them over to get sort of a strong opinion on things. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. But again, it's like seeing this happen especially on social media, where like that vegan teacher calling out the Vegan Teacher UK for pouring chocolate milk because vegan teacher was trying to get a campaign of people chugging Oatly chocolate milk, especially kids, because we're trying to get the kids influence. So the simple thing was to try and get this craze off the ground where these kids chug this Oatly down, get it a bit of a craze going on, and they will drink this chocolate milk and think, oh, hold on a minute, this is like cow's milk chocolate milkshake. It's no different. I'm going to have this from now on. And so she created a drama on that, and it's like, why do that? Why not have that conversation in the background via a phone call or a Zoom call and thrash that out behind the scenes? Don't bring it into the forefront for people, because all the comments were, look at that, look at these vegans. Vegan teacher in America is calling out the vegan teacher in the UK. Look at them, they can't even agree with it. It's just disheartening, you know?
I completely agree. I think that kind of talks to the whole, like the call in versus call out, you know, when just publicly shaming someone about whatever, especially when they're not there to respond to it. I see that as completely unproductive. And in most cases, like, why not focus on the issues versus the individuals? Because like you and I, like, it sounds like we haven't really had a long form discussion besides on Michelle's channel until this. And it sounds like we pretty much agree on most of this, if not all of it. But if we did disagree, like, this is how you do it. Have a live stream, like, compare your views. But all this, the comment sections on Facebook, I mean, can you imagine being a new vegan, joining your local Facebook group, like, and depending on how it's moderated, there's any number of things. Like, one, it's going to be diet as a message. It's going to be all food pictures, but you're going to see people bickering over the most minute stuff, and some of it's important, and I do think it should be addressed, but I completely agree. It completely takes the focus off of our fellow animals. Back to, I think, the start of this discussion.
I mean, that reminds me of a session on Facebook where somebody asked the question, I think it was World Vegans or something, some page, and they said, please tell me why you went vegan. And it was, oh yeah, for my type 2 diabetes. Oh yeah, it was a really good diet. And I put on, well, you only went vegan for the animals. That's the only reason to go vegan for animals. And I was ostracized. I got so many comments, and I'm thinking, what the hell? I left the group. It was like, what the hell? Are we really diluting this message so badly?
And even the most subtle thing. I mean, in our local group, you know, there was a comment back to the language discussion. You know, someone did a comment and they referred to our fellow animals as it, and I just said, you know, friendly reminder, our fellow animals are not an it kind of thing, which I thought was like a gentle way to say, hey, you know, that obviously didn't go well. So I think it's very few people are actually open to like a good faith discussion on social media. I think that's why I've tried to move completely towards live streams when I can.
Yeah, and I mean, even between me and you, what's the rate? Like you say,
and however many people are watching.
When does a live stream dance fight between you two, so we can start determining the winner of this debate? Remember, the chat picks the songs. Yeah. Well, I'm here to be educated. I'm here to be persuaded by Jeremy about language and about everything else, and I'm here to learn, and that's what everybody should be doing. They should be opening their minds and trying to think. It's not for us. You know, you might disagree with certain things, but you've got to mull them over. You've got to contemplate what's being said and think. I mean, Bruce Lee once said his art is not a single art. He's not a kung fu expert. What he does, he takes the best of every single martial art, throws away what he doesn't use, is useless, and takes what is useful. And that's what we should all be doing as vegans and activists, because I don't differentiate. I mean, Roger called me out on this for some reason. I don't know. Maybe you can answer why. Is that I don't think vegans can be vegans unless they're animal rights activists, and I don't think animal rights activists cannot be vegan. They've got to be both. To me, I feel that they go hand in hand. They're not mutually sort of exclusive. But I think take the best. You didn't say too sure then. You're going to explain in a minute. Take the best of everything and use it, because this is so. There's animals dying, 2,500 a second, as we know. Land animals, 2,500 a second are dying, you know. Many thousands have died while we've been talking this 1 hour 39 minutes. So it's important that we take little bits and open our minds. And some people are very narrow-minded. Even people on the chat are not open to certain things and disagree with me, disagree with you. disagree with that person, but you should contemplate, you should take the time to think, okay, what Dan was saying may be right, I don't agree with him, but this what he said, I agree with. Take that bit and use it,
Yep, it's not an all or nothing thing, is it? Well, and I would say, and this might be a bit controversial to say, but I think going into chats with non-vegans, I always go in, like, thinking about what I can learn from this, and basically every chat I have that's longer than 5 minutes or so, I learn something from that chat too. Maybe I use some language. I was camping this week, and at the reception they were asking, trying to recommend a restaurant for us, and they asked, is there any dietary restrictions or whatever, and I said, oh, we're animal free, and they used animal free back in their response, and it made me think about the mirroring effect. When we use language, it's natural, it's human nature to use language back, so we can get people thinking about things in a new way, almost kind of under the surface.
Animal free
versus vegan food.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I'm just saying it out loud to see how it makes me react. Animal free.
Yep.
Would that speak to people? If I run your restaurant and said I'm animal free,
it's a new term, and there's a bit of drama around it. That's a whole story.
Why? Tell me. I want to know. You're not going anywhere, are you?
That's true. Good point. There's a ice cream company who's come up with an animal-free ice cream. However, they tested on our fellow animals, and I actually had a private call with them, and they're moving away from the vegan labeling, but they're keeping the animal-free labeling. So I did a poll in the language group, like, hey, when people say animal-free, do you think that should, exclude things that have been tested? And it was like 42-0 said animal-free should also mean vegan. It wasn't tested, all this stuff. So we have these words are still being developed, and that's the problem. They're not consistently applied.
You see, do you know something though, Jeremy? I think I put it in my. I'll see if I can find it. There's actually a sausage out there now that they've called plant-based. And do you know why it's plant-based sausage? Because they feed the animals plants.
Yep.
And they've actually put that on the wrapper. Yeah. And that is very, very dangerous.
Well, and that's exactly it, because this ice cream company marketed initially as vegan, and they tested on our fellow animals, and it was. I'm still trying to process all of it, but they have a parent company, a secondary company, and then this third company set up that distributes the ice cream, and the parent company is the one who did the testing, which, rat feeding studies. So they bred, used, and killed dozens, if not hundreds, of unique individuals for this, and they're calling it vegan. Businesses, as we know, will lie to get profit as much as they can. This stuff is so poorly regulated. We've really got to be on our toes with this stuff, I think, and hold companies accountable. But yeah, that's a whole. But I think both vegan and plant-based are quite human-centric. I'm a vegan versus, it's not about me. It's about, our fellow animals, and they're the ultimate victims here. And hopefully survivors if we're to focus on their agency.
No, it's not in my community chat. I've sent it to somebody, I think. Let me see if I can find it. It's just like, and they're not even hidden. The plant-based. They've not even hidden the sort of. They've really sort of emphasised it. Yeah,
and just while you're doing that, one of the comments: animal-free is good, but I would think I can't bring my dogs. And I think it was specifically animal-free food, or from a dietary perspective, animal-free. So yeah, kind of how we frame it.
No, I'm just getting.
I think when we talk about vegan food, it's all about I'm vegan, and here's the vegan food I eat. Our fellow animals are rarely, if ever, mentioned.
I mean, I haven't got a major problem with saying vegan food.
What do you think the average non-vegan or speciesist thinks when they hear vegan food? Do you think they think about our fellow animals, or do you think they think about humans being vegan and the diet aspect?
I don't know. I really don't know, because yeah, I wouldn't say, I try not to say vegan diet, but I do use vegan. There's plenty of vegan food out there.
Yeah. Most animal advocates, I think, do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to look at like the way things work. The way things work is like 97% of animal cruelty is caused for food.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Would you agree with that? I mean,
I think it's the dietary aspect is definitely the focus of that. That's where most of the animal use is. Yeah,
it's definitely. That. I mean, this is why I'm sort of mixed with. I mean, I don't mind people who say they're plant-based. I think that helps a lot. It helps a lot, but it's. I would rather people be vegan. I would rather people be vegan in their outlook, in their philosophy. But like I said before, once you're plant-based, once you Google, if anybody Googles plant-based, the word vegan starts coming up, and then all roads lead to veganism once you go down that route of plant-based anyway. But
like most of the support programs focus on the dietary aspect anyway, which I think makes sense in a lot of ways, and then talk about other forms of animal use. But if someone can, like you say, nail the dietary aspect, they've encountered the social situations and all that stuff. The other stuff is very achievable.
Do you remember me asking you a question about what's happened in the last 5 years? Why veganism has grown so big so quickly?
Well, I mean, I guess we're looking at a 70-year movement that could last. I mean.
Yeah,
I flick between optimism and pessimism. I mean, it could be 500 or 1,000 years. So I think whether we look at the last 5 years or last 70 years, we're still very early days.
Yeah, but would you disagree with me that in the last 5 years things have changed a hell of a lot?
Well, in talking to people who have been animal advocates for decades, I'd say even they would say the same going back that far. Yeah, so I mean, I agree there has been a lot of change. I mean, to answer the question, I think you're asking is. I'd say social media has been a massive impact. We no longer necessarily go to mainstream media as our sole source of information.
Yeah, agree.
So it's much more universal.
But do you not think vegan food has had a big part to play in it?
Well, there's the chant, we want, I think it's something along the lines, I'm sure someone in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but we want animal liberation, not vegan options. That's a frequent chat, which that kind of talks to the capitalism thing too. So there's a lot to discuss around that, depending where we want to go with it. But I think they help and they make it more accessible. And where we spend our money, if we spend our money at a animal-free or vegan business versus someone who's predominantly supporting animal use but has a few vegan options, I think it's good to be mindful of that, because these vegan businesses that are the pioneers, they're the ones that are going to be forced out of business, which breaks my heart. Like, they're the ones who started it, and they can't keep up with the scalability of the thing or the pricing and all this other stuff, and they're going to get pushed out.
I live in a small town called Shaw. Okay, and it had a beautiful high street. We had a greengrocer. We still got butcher, unfortunately. We had a shoe shop. We had a clothes shop. We had a fruit shop, and then the Oldham Council, who were greedy bastards, let Asda put their big massive supermarket just behind the high street. The greengrocer shut, the other butchers shut, the clothes shop shut, everything shut down. So that's inevitable, whether it's in the vegan side of things or whether it's in just everyday life. It's once coming, it's like festivals. Like 5 years ago, I went to a vegan festival, and I was a bit disillusioned because it was just very shit food at extortionate prices because they could. And these were vegans. These were vegan businesses, and obviously the prices of ingredients are different. They're not as in big supply. You can't buy them in bulk because it wasn't popular. And now it's like it's just all out there now. Nobody goes to these little vegan festivals where there's like, but a lot of it was focused on food. I mean, obviously there was Sea Shepherd there, there was like AV there and stuff like that, but a lot of it was focused on the food, and it was overpriced, and I think that's changed as well. I think that's changed. Things have come down in price. I can now get my litre of oat milk for 43p, soya milk for like And I think that is a big draw to people to the convenience side of things, is because when we're talking human-centric, people's biggest objection is how hard it is to become a vegan.
Yeah, and those processed foods don't necessarily help our case, because if you buy things in a box, it's going to be, I don't know, off the top of my head, probably 2, 4, 5 times as expensive as just buying whole foods, in season whole foods. Because it doesn't have to be expensive, but if you're like, oh, buy this product, that whatever company made, it is going to be expensive. It's probably still cheaper than a lot of the animal alternatives, but
yeah. Well, it's been really interesting, mate. It's been really interesting.
Deb said something in the chat. I'm just trying to see if I can find it.
Do you want me to roll it up? Can you see it?
I got it now. At 8:18, sadly, some self-proclaimed vegans think things like riding horses or and going to animal prisons or zoos is okay. And that, I think, is the thing between animal abuse and animal use that we're talking about, because I think there are some people that think zoos aren't abusive and they do great conservation work and all this stuff, when in reality they're just putting our fellow animals in display cases.
It's a total fallacy. I mean, I really bought into that concept that it is sort of, they wouldn't exist, these animals in the wild, if it weren't for us keeping them here in these zoos. But what's the point in them being kept in zoos? They're not out in nature where they should be. So what's the point?
It's all human ego thinking we can fix the problems. We'll just breed up their numbers and we'll fix everything. And same with aquariums, or as I like to say, water prisons. It's all part of the same discussion.
Well, there's a new thing coming into the UK. I think they've already started it in Scotland, and they're introducing beavers to the UK to help with the flooding problems, because apparently it's going to cure the problem with the rivers and flooding and all this, and beavers are really good. And we're going to introduce a very destructive species into the environment. And what happens if it goes wrong? What happens once these beavers go absolutely crazy and the numbers get massive and they ruin farmers' land? And we're going to need another cull, just like we needed. Well, we didn't need, but you know what I'm saying. Devil's advocate. We needed the badger cull because we wanted to stop TB going to cows. It's just, we're playing around with nature. And
have you seen the meme? Have you seen the meme where there's a badger and a human, and the badger says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to shoot you now because you're spreading a virus," pointing a gun at the human? Flip it to test it. It's like, really, and you look at the earlier discussion around New Zealand, you look at the possums there.
Yeah.
I mean, they completely mess up the ecosystem. It's all.
I mean,
it's all. I almost misspoke and said ecosystem, but it basically is human egos thinking we can correct the ecosystem.
Did we have badgers in the UK before?
I'd have to Google it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we did. I know we used to have bears and boars, but then we had a land bridge to Europe. So yeah, it is a funny one. We do play around, and it is an ecosystem that we're trying to create. Defender of Animals used to work in a zoo, by the way. He does a lot of great work. He's got a t-shirt company. He's working for Plant-Based News. Does a bit of work for those guys. But yeah, it's like the Knowsley Safari Park. I was protesting outside. Those people were coming, and I managed to get 2 people to turn around and leave, which was cool. But it's just, we try and justify things and try and make ourselves feel a lot easier about things, like the lobsters. And it's just, I remember going to Seaside, and they were selling crabbing buckets.
That's a horrible term in the first place. Crabbing bucket,
crabbing buckets, yeah. And it's directed at kids. They had a cartoon crab, a little bucket aimed at toddlers, not aimed at adults to survive because they're starving. To go and catch crabs for fun. It's a beachside. Wow.
That's like fishing and hunting and all those things. Yeah. There's I use the analogy like, why not go bird watching? I'm a photographer. I like to take pictures of our free living individuals in the trees and flying around. Try to take a still shot of a bird before they fly away. Takes that's not easy. There's plenty of skill involved in that to keep us busy without killing anyone.
Well, I did photography a long time. I used to love my photography. I used to do a lot of urbexing, climbing into places, climbing up things, and but wildlife photography is, you've got to have the right equipment. You've got to know your target before you go and shoot it. You've really got to know your target.
Shoot it in a non-violent way.
In a non-violent way, but
you just gotta wait till someone takes that 10-second snippet out.
I hope they do. I really do. I would not say I've been to sanctuaries where animals have been rescued from zoo industry and the conditions living far worse than a zoo. Yeah, well, this is the thing
That's
about sanctuaries. Yeah, but sanctuaries, it's when you're rescuing animals and you want to take animals and you want to save the life and you're full to capacity, but someone comes, how do you turn that animal away? It must be a tough sort of decision to turn an animal away, knowing it's going to go to its death if you can't find it somewhere else to go. So yeah, sanctuaries.
It's certainly not low-hanging fruit. This is probably, I know we're coming up on 2 hours, but that's a whole nother chat. Like, to me, like, why as animal advocates are we targeting animal sanctuaries? Like, I agree there's issues there, that getting the balance, and especially now, if anybody knows your local sanctuary, if you don't, figure out who it is and just support them, because COVID is literally killing them. I mean, they can't run public events. If they are, it's very reduced. And they do the best they can. Like, to me, that should not be our focus at all, or even in a scope and is it really the stage of the game where we need to be policing animal sanctuaries? Honestly, it upsets me when if anyone knows anything about animal sanctuaries, they give their entire lives to running those things. Oftentimes the animals live better off than them in some cases. So it's like that just before I get too riled up, I'll let you back to you. But
well, I mean, I agree. It's people start off with the best intentions. It's like getting people getting family pets. You get your puppy, and this big campaign that we used to have in the UK called "A Dog Is Not Just for Christmas; It's for Life." People like the government having to sort of put adverts on TV telling you that your dog's not. I think it was the RSPCA actually. They don't stay cute and cuddly.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You never see a sick animal on display, do you? And that's more maybe a treatment or animal welfare concern. But I think there's an important clarification in the chat, specifically talking about exotic animal sanctuaries. Yeah, you got it. Not vegan sanctuaries. So it sounds like we're all saying the same thing, maybe in different ways.
Yeah, but I mean, this is I watched a TV show with some EastEnders star on it, and he went round, and I can actually just fill a form in now, get a license, and I can go on the internet and buy basically any exotic animal I want, including tigers, lions. There's an ex-jockey who's got like 4 or 5 tigers in his garden, and it's like monkeys. There's a big thing with monkey children. It's a replacement for the children, and this is how they justify it. But sorry, Jeremy. But I agree that even normal sanctuaries, when I said normal, I mean rescued farmed animals sanctuaries, even some of them are struggling and end up in dire straits with conditions and food, and what do you do?
Yeah, I think the effort that's put into calling them out, back to our earlier conversation, if we put that effort into campaigning, fundraising, volunteering to support them, that to me that's the obvious direction versus trying to get the animals removed to go God knows where. All the sanctuaries are full as far as I know.
Yes, I did see that, and that is like, what an oxymoron that is. She rescues and occasionally eats her guests. She eats her guests.
Just a quick anecdote around that. Hiking around Maidstone the last week, I saw a couple different signs, and actually in person had a representative of one of the English historical sites basically threatened to kill our dogs if they are anywhere near the sheep, and a sign saying basically the same. And it's like, what? So you'll kill the dogs to keep the sheep from being killed before the humans kill them? Like, it's such backwards logic. And like literally when they said like, yeah, and my partner said it excellent, because they kind of start off like, well, and just keep them on the lead because you don't know what's going to happen. And my partner's like, well, what do you mean? And then went on to say like, oh, they could be shot and all this stuff. And then I'm like, when I repeated back what they said, that you could tell they're kind of like, oh, yeah, that makes zero fucking sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, sometimes it's this look in it. It's like that. It's like sometimes I use this expression a lot. It's like, what?
It's a bizarre world we live in. As an animal advocate, it feels like we're living in a Twilight Zone, doesn't it? Yeah.
Zombie apocalypse already started a while ago, and I agree with that, mate. I agree with that. Guys, if you've got Netflix, have a look at a series called Sweet Tooth. Really something else. And also, Black Summer is a zombie film, but it's very, very relevant. Sweet Tooth is very relevant to veganism. It's a really cool film. It's a bit like aliens coming down and sorting out the world. And Black Summer is very virus related. Really is. It's very relevant. But what about films and documentaries, Jeremy? What do you think could be helpful for people to watch?
There's a new one I'm super excited about. It's called Gunda. Someone may know it in the chat. I believe it's either Gunda or Ganda, and that's from Joaquin Phoenix. I believe is a part of that project, and I believe it's in the theaters now. I don't even know if theaters are going. I think they may be starting up again. But that is like it basically it's kind of like the work I'm passionate about is really focusing on individuals at sanctuaries. So super animal-centric focus. Back to the earlier chat. Yeah, there you go, Gunda. So there's a 2-minute trailer on YouTube that you can watch, and I think there's some sanctuaries that have started doing some viewings of it to raise funds. So I think in the next couple of months, that's going to be a really powerful documentary to share around.
I'm just looking now to see if this is the right... yeah, it is. Okay, let's put this up.
That trailer, I mean, it's only 2 minutes if you want to chuck it on. Like, it is so powerful.
Doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
You've done a few of these live streams, haven't you?
Listen, guys. Start putting a few questions and comments down there, and we'll give it another 15 minutes if that's all right with you, Jeremy, and then we'll call it. So let me make sure I share the audio. So let's have a look at this. This is Gunda. Wow. That leaves you wanting more. That is a perfect trailer. Wow.
That gets me going, and I've seen it before, and that watching that again even gets me going. It's just so powerful. Yeah.
But it doesn't give you any idea what it's about, though, does it? I mean, we know it's Joaquin Phoenix, but it doesn't tell you what's going to happen at all, does it? There's no spoilers in that. I was waiting for the mist to come over and then like gas chambers and oh man. So
yeah.
do you know what the premise is? What's it?
Yeah, I mean, I only know basically. I just watched the trailer and had a bit of contact with it here and there, but it's. I just think it's something completely new because you're right. I think this goes back to the earlier conversation. Like, I don't think we necessarily need to show our fellow animals being abused. Like, if we show them as the individuals who they are, any breeding, use, or murder of them will find morally repugnant. So to me, that's what the documentary is all about, is highlight them as individuals, which to me is where our focus should be. But yeah, as a fellow video editor, you probably appreciated, like, to get the text to layer with the picture, the images like that. You can tell there's a high level of skill that went into that. So it's just going to be fantastic, I reckon.
I mean, some of the comments on it, like extraordinary, and it's like, wow. And this is on the movies, or is it going to be a platform?
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to get a viewing arranged for your local area somehow, either through a sanctuary or maybe at a venue. But yeah, I think it's private viewings at the moment, as well as theaters. Yeah, I've been trying. I have a calendar reminder set to keep checking when it comes out more widely.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that one because that has really piqued my curiosity. I mean, when Game Changers came out, the amount of people at the gyms, Jeremy, that I sent off and said, listen, go and watch this Game Changers and then tell me what you think. And they've walked back in the changing rooms and gone, Danny, I watched that Game Changers. It blew my mind. Yeah. And it's, again, the health thing. But
yeah,
if it gets
answer that question, then they're forced to answer the moral question. I completely agree with that.
So has somebody seen this film then? I'm just looking in the comments. I watched this film and the ending has just kind of broke my heart, but people need to make the connection. Is this Gunda you're talking about, Peace for Animals? Please let me know in the comments.
Without any spoilers.
Yeah, without any spoilers. Yeah, I captured footage here of Thelma, a camel outside in the cold. It broke my heart. We're trying to find out which locations to do events, put pressure on the males not to have them.
I got some footage of camels when I was traveling once, and unfortunately I lost the footage, which is a long story. But seeing them, they were being forced to carry around tourists to do camel rides, and I zoomed with my super zoom lens. I zoomed in on their faces, and you could see their little eyes squinting, and like the facial expressions tell it all. Which that to me is the focus.
Andrew Meakin, this is the breeder that supplies covens with the formula hunted in life science. Copyright's really take out. Andrew, can you explain what's happening down there at Huntingdon, please? This is what I was talking about earlier, I think.
I wonder if they're watching the live stream on delay.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I'd be interested to know because I've done a call for action on that. I want people to go down there. Oh yes, it is. Thank you, Gumby, for highlighting it. No problem, mate. I'm going to try and get down and visit myself if I get time because this can be really, really. I mean, it's awful in itself. It's disgusting in itself, but it can be a really, really good tool in itself to get a starting point for conversations with people. Like, do you realise these puppies are being farmed? Beagles are really beautiful dogs as well. They're really loving, loyal.
Well, that's why they're chosen, isn't it? Because they're so submissive. I think that's most species that are widely used. But yeah, I agree. Animal testing gets so little focus. I think that it's great to light on that. I'm in Brighton, UK for about 2 months, and then the UK is kicking us out. Not because we did anything, no exciting stories, but our visa is just running out. So I wish I had a good story to tell. Maybe I'll come up with one in the coming months. But
get out, you bloody scroungers! Get back to the US.
So then I'll be back to the US and actually planning to start a microsanctuary out there with my partner. So we're working on that project at the moment.
Oh, keep me in the loop on that one, mate. I'd love to sort of do a video on that. Send me some footage. In fact, I hope you're going to do a full story on it from its inception and just film bits and bats. It'd be really interesting to see your journey.
That's the whole idea. Obviously, it's about the survivors who we take in, but I also want to tell their stories, similar to the Gunda documentary we just saw, like literally just try to do everything I can, because I think when people visit a sanctuary, I think it's basically impossible not to leave seeing our fellow animals in a new way. And I just want to do that as much as I can through the camera, with live videos, short things that I pump around Facebook, whatever.
Yeah, definitely, mate, definitely. Bo, which part of... If you come on time, you'd know these things. He's in the Midwest, Peru. Peru he's from.
And the whole plan is to downsize our house to a converted van with our 2 dog friends, and trip around the country and basically find the best spot to start a microsanctuary. We've got some ideas, but maybe Southern California, but it's a bit dry there and less chance for grass for the survivors who live with us. So a lot of questions to answer there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean... did you see my interview with the vegan pirates in Costa Rica?
I'm not sure if I did.
They're doing something very, very similar. They're Austrians and they moved to Costa Rica, and they're actually they work with Sea Shepherd. They've made a video about rescuing a whale, which is coming out soon. Wow. And they're just creating all sorts. They're growing stuff out there. They're doing conservation, and I said, well, wouldn't it be great if people could come over and visit them and stay with them? They said, oh yeah, we're setting all that up. And this is the thing you've talked about, like California, wherever. There's lots of people. There's lots of great ways. People would love to come and work on sanctuaries for a free holiday. It's just a great way to use people's resources and give them a holiday as well, and maybe a break, a mental break from it. Because as we know, this is really sort of. I switch off. I find time to switch off from this. I'm not a 24/7. I've spent time with Joey in the house, and he never switches off from animal rights. It's constantly on his mind. In fact, when we were filming Veganville, he even went to bed for, I think, nearly 40 hours. He was gone. He was just sort of slept for that whole time.
Got to take care of ourselves, because
definitely.
If we burn out, we can't help anyone.
So maybe that would be an idea of setting up your microsanctuaries. Get somewhere where you've got maybe a couple of rooms to rent out, and people come over and do some work for you, and pay you for the privilege as well.
Yeah, I know Jacob's Ridge in Spain does that, and yeah, you can get little pods, and then people do Airbnb basically to stay on the sanctuary. It's a great fundraiser for the sanctuary too.
I'm not timist. You've got to be timist when you're my age. You're in no time left. It's running out. I've been alive longer than I've got left, and that's a scary thought. But then again, I'm vegan, so I may be able to double my lifespan. So we'll see. But we don't talk about health, apparently. We don't talk about health, no.
We get sprinkled in there. I'm not saying not at all. A little sprinkle. Hey, if you live to 1,000, I'm happy for that.
Okay, listen, it's been 2 hours, 13 minutes. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know we could go on forever, but yeah, I've really enjoyed the chat. It's been really interesting. It's been great to sort of get to know more about you, Jeremy, as well. It really is a shame. I mean, I do know some people that could probably extend your visa for a fee. You know what I mean, kid? Know what I mean? Hey? Yeah. So, you can keep that in mind, yeah. Don't worry about that. The interest rate is quite high, however, and
do I get to pick a new name? Yeah.
Real Vegans live stream for at least 3 hours. Listen, stop being human-centric. It's not all about you and right. It's about the animals. We've got to go away and do shit for the animals. 24 hours, Danny. Common. Oh yeah. But listen, just a big thank you for coming on and talking with me and clearing things up, because to get back to the original point is that sometimes we find it hard to understand certain concepts, and a lot of people out there, and I know people will agree with me on this, is that you feel stupid, like asking the nuance question, yeah? I mean, some people feel stupid asking a question of what does that that. Oh, don't reschedule. My computer was just about to restart. Then, just let me change it. There we go.
Oh, I think we should encourage those questions because that's how we all learn. That's absolutely like I think that's great when people,
exactly.
Because otherwise we're not understanding each other and nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly, mate. But it does feel, I do feel dumb sometimes asking questions like, what do you mean by that? And it's like, oh God, listen to me, don't even know what that means. And it's all in there, I agree. But it's what's the point in me trying to learn if people aren't willing to explain simple things and simplify the language? I'm not asking them to be dumbed down. I get it. It's just that certain words, and I suppose a lot of people are out there. Vegan Wahita, what time do you call this? That's ridiculous, mate. If you've just got out of bed again. Well, listen, mate. Any last words for the people out there? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I agree with you. Encourage learning within the community. I think we should be encouraging these questions. It says more about them than us, I think, when we ask a question and we get a negative response. And yeah, honestly, just thank you, Dan, and everybody who's been here. To me, this is what it's all about, because I think as animal advocates, it can be quite lonely work, if we want to call it work. And it's great. This is just great for community building. And I've learned a lot from you, Dan, in this chat around a lot of current topics that I'm going to be Googling after this. So I'm really appreciative of you making me aware of some of this stuff too, because I've really enjoyed it.
We have got to keep our fingers on the pulse and look what's going on. But my message to people out there is just get active. Please don't dismiss anybody's views on things. Listen to them, mull it over. Take what's useful away from that. Take what's useful away from our conversation today and use it. Because animals' lives are in peril as we speak. They've already gone. They've faced the knife. They've faced the gas chamber. They've faced the electric tongs. They've faced the stunning bath. They've faced halal slaughter. They've faced all sorts of things, terrible things, in the 2 hours that we've been talking here. So anything you can use to even just get one person to change to a vegan philosophy, your work is like important to such a degree. I can't stress it enough. It's so important. We need to stop this happening now. But listen, no time to waste. Exactly, Deb. No time to waste. But listen, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate everybody being here and listening to us. Spread the word. I can't wait to see that movie, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.
Bye.